The rain fell like bullets on the cracked pavement of Fletcher Street, turning the night into a blur of neon reflections and steam rising from the manholes. It was nearly 11 p.m. in downtown Philadelphia, and the city seemed determined to wash away every trace of warmth from the November air. Sophia Moretti pushed through the glass door of Rosalie's diner, her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. 12 hours on her feet, 12 hours of forced smiles, impatient customers, and the perpetual smell of grease that clung to her uniform like a second skin. She pulled her worn burgundy coat tighter around her body, the fabric thin and inadequate against the cold that immediately bit through to her bones. "Night, Sophia," called out Marcus, the night cook, his dark face glistening with sweat as he scrubbed down the industrial stove. "Get home safe, girl, this weather's nasty." "Always do," she replied with a tired wave, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. Her voice carried the faint echo of her Italian grandmother's accent, a ghost of heritage she'd never quite shed, even after 3 generations in America. The street was nearly empty. A taxi hissed past, its tires cutting through puddles and sending arcs of dirty water onto the sidewalk. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself and began the 6-block walk to her studio apartment in the Fishtown neighborhood. She'd made this walk 1,000 times, knew every crack in the sidewalk, every flickering streetlight, every shadow that was safe and which ones to avoid. But tonight, something was different. Across the street, huddled against the brick wall of an abandoned storefront, sat a figure that made her pause mid-step. A man, middle-aged, maybe older, sat with his knees drawn up to his chest, completely soaked. His clothes were dark and shapeless with rain, his hair plastered to his skull. Even from 30 feet away, Sophia could see him shaking. She'd lived in the city long enough to develop the protective callousness most urbanites wore like armor. You couldn't help everyone, you couldn't save everyone. Philadelphia had taught her that lesson early and often, but something about this man pulled at something deep in her chest. Maybe it was the way he sat, not aggressively panhandling like some, not passed out drunk like others. He just sat there, enduring, as if he'd accepted that this was simply what the world had decided for him tonight. Sophia stood at the corner, the rain soaking through her sneakers, her fingers numb. Her practical mind was screaming at her to keep walking. That coat was the only one she owned. Winter was coming. She had bills piling up on her tiny kitchen counter, a landlord who'd already threatened eviction twice this year, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Sophia, il bene che fai torna sempre." The good you do always returns. Before she could talk herself out of it, Sophia crossed the street. The man didn't look up as she approached. His head was bowed, water dripping from his nose and chin. Up close, she could see that despite the filth and the rain, there was something unusual about him. The structure of his face was sharp, defined. His hands, though dirty, didn't have the weathered, destroyed look of someone who'd been on the streets for years. "Hey," Sophia said softly, crouching down to his level. The cold from the wet concrete immediately seeped through her jeans. "Sir, are you okay?" The man's head lifted slowly. His eyes, a piercing gray that seemed almost colorless in the dim light, met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain continued its relentless assault, and somewhere in the distance a siren wailed. "I'm fine," he said finally, his voice rough but oddly cultured. Not the slurred speech she'd expected, but measured, careful. Sophia's hands were already moving to unbutton her coat. "You're freezing. Here, take this." "No," he said firmly, holding up a hand. "I can't." "You'll die of hypothermia," Sophia interrupted, shrugging out of the coat despite his protest. The cold immediately attacked her, making her gasp. She was down to just her thin diner uniform, a polyester dress that offered zero protection. "I'm serious, take it." She draped the coat over his shoulders before he could refuse again. The burgundy fabric looked absurdly small on his frame, but it was something. He stared at her with those unsettling gray eyes, his expression unreadable, surprise, confusion, and something else she couldn't identify. "Why?" he asked simply. Sophia stood, already shivering violently. "Because it's the right thing to do. There's a shelter 2 blocks north on Kensington Avenue. They'll be open for another hour. Please go there, get warm." She didn't wait for his response. If she stood there any longer, she'd freeze. Or worse, she'd take the coat back. Sophia turned and hurried down the street, her arms wrapped tight around herself, teeth already chattering. She didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen the man slowly stand, the coat still draped over his shoulders. She would have seen him watch her retreating figure with an expression of profound bewilderment. She would have seen him pull a cell phone from his pocket, expensive, incongruous with his appearance, and make a call. "It's me," he said quietly into the phone. "Send the car, and find out everything about the woman who just walked away. Everything." 3 days later, Sophia's life maintained its predictable rhythm of exhaustion and monotony. The loss of her coat meant she'd had to layer 2 of her thinnest sweaters under her work uniform and pray the cold snap would break soon. It wouldn't. The weather forecast promised the coldest November in a decade. Tuesday afternoon found her in the middle of the lunch rush at Rosalie's, balancing 4 plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes with the practiced ease of someone who'd been waitressing since high school. Table 6 needed more coffee, Table 3 wanted their check, and Table 9 was complaining about the temperature of their soup. Just another day. "Sophia, booth 4 needs menus," called out Jenny, the other waitress on shift, a platinum blonde with a tough South Philly accent and a heart of gold under her sarcastic exterior. "Got it," Sophia replied, grabbing 2 laminated menus from the stack by the register. She was halfway to booth 4 when she heard it, a sound that made everyone in the diner freeze. The screech of tires, multiple vehicles, car doors slamming in rapid succession. Through the large front windows, Sophia watched 3 black SUVs pull up directly in front of Rosalie's, not parking, blocking the entire street. Men in dark suits emerged, their movements coordinated, professional. The kind of professional that made her stomach drop. "Oh, Jesus," Marcus breathed from behind the counter. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Everyone in Philadelphia knew what this looked like. The suited men entered the diner and the already quiet restaurant fell into absolute silence. They didn't say anything, just took positions by the door, the windows, covering every exit. Their faces were expressionless, their hands resting casually near their jackets in a way that suggested exactly what was underneath. Then the last vehicle, a sleek black sedan, pulled up. The passenger door opened, and Sophia's world tilted sideways. The man who stepped out was dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, his dark hair styled back, a gold watch glinting on his wrist. He moved with absolute confidence, the kind that came from knowing that every space he entered belonged to him. But it was his face, those sharp features, those unsettling gray eyes, that made Sophia's breath stop completely. It was him, the man from the street, the homeless man she'd given her coat to. He walked into the diner, and the atmosphere changed instantly. This wasn't a police raid. This was something far more dangerous. The man's eyes scanned the room methodically before landing on Sophia. For a moment that stretched into eternity, they simply looked at each other. Then, slowly, deliberately, he began walking toward her. Every instinct screamed at Sophia to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She stood frozen, menus still clutched in her hands as this stranger, this perfectly dressed, obviously powerful stranger, approached with the inevitability of a storm. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle. When he spoke, his voice was the same rough yet cultured tone she remembered from that rainy night. "We need to talk," he said quietly, for her ears only. "Don't be afraid." But Sophia was afraid, terrified, because even though she didn't know his name, didn't understand what was happening, she knew with absolute certainty that the simple act of kindness she'd performed 3 nights ago had just changed everything. The silence in Rosalie's diner was suffocating. Every customer sat frozen, forks suspended halfway to mouths, coffee cups trembling in white-knuckled grips. The only sound was the hum of the ancient refrigerator behind the counter and the distant rumble of traffic outside, a world that suddenly felt very far away. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs so violently she was certain everyone could hear it. The man stood before her, his gray eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Up close, in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the diner, he looked nothing like the broken figure from the rainy street. This man radiated power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself because everyone could feel it pressing down on them like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Sophia's voice came out as a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I don't understand. What do you want?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your coat saved my life that night. The least I can do is introduce myself properly." He extended his hand in a gesture so normal, so civilized, that it felt absurd given the armed men positioned throughout the diner. "Adrian Mancini." The name detonated in Sophia's mind like a grenade. Adrian Mancini. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the kitchen by Marcus, mentioned in hushed tones by her neighbors, splashed across newspaper headlines she'd glimpsed at the corner bodega. The Mancini family wasn't just connected to organized crime in Philadelphia. They were organized crime. 3 generations of power, influence, and violence wrapped in expensive suits and legitimate business fronts. And she'd given him her coat. Sophia's hand moved automatically, shaking his before her brain could catch up. His grip was firm, warm, almost gentle, completely at odds with everything she knew he represented. "Sophia Moretti," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "But you already know that, don't you?" "I do." Adrian released her hand and gestured to the nearest booth, the one where old Mr. Patterson usually sat reading his paper. Mr. Patterson was currently pressed against the wall, his face pale, looking like he might have a heart attack at any moment. "Please, sit with me, just for a few minutes." It wasn't a request. Sophia knew that, but the way he said it, the way he was looking at her, there was something in his expression that wasn't quite threatening. Curiosity, maybe, or something stranger. She slid into the booth, her legs grateful for the support. Adrian sat across from her, and immediately one of his men approached, leaning down to whisper something in his ear. Adrian's expression didn't change, but he gave a slight nod. The man retreated, speaking quietly into a radio. "You're probably wondering why I'm here," Adrian said, folding his hands on the chipped formica table. His nails were clean, manicured. Everything about him screamed money and danger in equal measure. "The thought crossed my mind," Sophia replied, surprised by the edge of sarcasm in her own voice. Fear did strange things to people, made some crumble, made others defiant. Apparently she was the latter. Adrian's eyes glinted with something that might have been amusement. 3 nights ago, I was conducting what you might call field research, understanding the streets, seeing how my city operates when people don't know who's watching. It's something I do occasionally. He paused, his gaze never leaving hers. "I've sat on that corner before, dozens of times. Do you know how many people stopped to help?" Sophia shook her head slowly. "In 3 years? 4. You were the 4th. He leaned back, and the booth creaked slightly under his weight. 2 gave me money, loose change they could spare. 1 gave me a sandwich. You gave me the coat off your back in a rainstorm, and you were shivering before you even walked away." "It was just a coat," Sophia said quietly, though her hands were trembling in her lap. "An old coat. Nothing special." "Everything's relative," Adrian countered. "That coat was probably worth $20, maybe $30. My watch," he tapped the gold Rolex on his wrist, "could buy you 100 of those coats. But in that moment, on that street, your coat meant survival, and you gave it without hesitation, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "I don't want anything from you," Sophia said quickly, her voice firmer now. "I didn't do it for... I didn't know. I know you didn't." Adrian's voice was soft but absolute. "That's precisely the point. Every single day people line up outside my legitimate businesses, my office, even my home, wanting something. Money, protection, favors, opportunities. Everyone wants a piece of what I have. Everyone's calculating the angle, the benefit." He leaned forward again, and Sophia caught a hint of that expensive cologne, cedar and something darker. "You're the first person in years who gave me something without calculation, without fear, without knowing my name." Jenny appeared at the edge of the booth, her face pale but determined, coffee pot clutched in her hand like a weapon. Can I get you anything?" Her voice cracked on the last word. Adrian didn't look at her. "Clear the diner. Everyone out. Now. Except her staff. They stay." He pulled out a wallet, black leather, probably worth more than Sophia's monthly rent, and placed $500 bills on the table. "For the inconvenience and the lost business." Jenny grabbed the money with shaking hands and immediately started ushering customers toward the door. They went willingly, grateful for the escape. Within 2 minutes, Rosalie's was empty except for Sophia, Adrian, his security team, Jenny, Marcus, and old George the dishwasher, who'd emerged from the kitchen looking terrified. The sudden emptiness made the space feel larger, more exposed. Sophia could hear her own breathing, could feel the weight of Adrian's attention like a physical thing. "I don't understand what you want from me," Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper now that the audience was gone. "I'm nobody. I'm a waitress. I work doubles to make rent. I don't have anything you could possibly need." Adrian was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming once on the table, a surprisingly human gesture. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made Sophia understand, viscerally, why people feared him. My father built an empire on the principle that loyalty is everything. Loyalty bought with money, with fear, with necessity. It works, I won't deny that. But it's fragile, mercenary. People stay because they're paid to stay, because they're afraid not to stay. He paused, his gray eyes seeming to look through her rather than at her. What you showed me was something different, something I haven't seen in a very long time. Kindness without motive, humanity without agenda. That's just being a decent person, Sophia protested. It shouldn't be that rare, but it is. Adrian's voice was almost sad, in my world especially, and I've learned that when you find something rare, something valuable, you protect it, you honor it. A chill ran down Sophia's spine that had nothing to do with the diner's broken heating. What does that mean? Before Adrian could answer, one of his men approached again, this time with more urgency. Boss, we've got movement on Callow Hill Street. Russo's people looks like they're asking questions. Adrian's expression hardened instantly, transforming from thoughtful to dangerous in a heartbeat. How many? 3 cars, maybe a dozen men. They're being careful, but they're definitely watching. The Russos, Adrian said quietly, almost to himself. Then to Sophia, do you know who they are? She shook her head, though the name sent another spike of fear through her chest. Rival family. We've been at peace for 3 years, but it's a fragile peace. If they know I was vulnerable, exposed on that street. He trailed off, his jaw tightening. If they know someone helped me, they might consider that person an asset, or a target. The words hit Sophia like ice water. What? No, I don't have anything to do with… I know. Adrian's voice was calm but urgent. Which is why you're coming with me. Right now. Excuse me? Sophia's voice rose, panic flooding through her veins. I'm not going anywhere with you. I have a shift to finish. You have a target on your back. Adrian interrupted, his voice cutting through her protests like a knife. The moment I walked into this diner with my men, everyone saw me talk to you. By tomorrow, everyone in this neighborhood will know. By tomorrow night, the Russos will know. And they'll come asking questions you can't answer, making threats you can't defend against. Sophia's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. 3 days ago, her biggest problem was making rent. Now she was sitting across from a mob boss who was telling her she was in danger because she'd been kind to a stranger. This is insane, she breathed. I can't just leave. I have a job, an apartment, a life. You have 20 minutes to pack whatever matters, Adrian said, standing smoothly. My men will escort you. You'll stay at one of my properties until we sort this out. Until I'm certain you're safe. And if I refuse… Sophia stood too, anger cutting through the fear. She was tired. She was scared. But she wasn't going to be ordered around like a chess piece. What then? You'll drag me out of here against my will? Adrian studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. No, he said finally. I won't force you, but understand this. The Russos don't play by rules. They don't care that you're innocent. They'll use you to get to me, and they won't be gentle about it. I'm offering you protection. Temporary, until this situation is resolved. How long is temporary? I don't know, he admitted, and that honesty surprised her more than anything else he'd said. A few days, maybe a week, maybe longer. Sophia looked around the diner, at Jenny watching wide-eyed from behind the counter, at Marcus standing in the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed at the life she'd built over 5 years in this city. It wasn't much. It was exhausting and underpaid and precarious, but it was hers. And now, because of one moment of compassion, it was all falling apart. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made the only choice she could. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, but I want your word, your actual word, that this is temporary, that you'll let me go back to my life when it's safe. Adrian extended his hand again, and this time when Sophia took it, she understood she was sealing something far more significant than a simple agreement. You have my word, he said, on my family's name. And in Adrian Mancini's world, Sophia was beginning to understand that meant everything. The brownstone on Delancey Street looked like it belonged in a different city, maybe Boston or New York, somewhere old money whispered through tree-lined avenues and history seeped from every brick. 4 stories of perfectly maintained 19th century architecture, with black iron railings, pristine white trim, and windows that gleamed even in the fading November light. It was the kind of building Sophia had walked past 1,000 times, never imagining she'd step inside. The SUV pulled up to the curb and Adrian's security team moved with practiced efficiency. 2 men exited first, scanning the street with trained eyes before one opened Adrian's door, then Sophia's. The cold air hit her immediately. She still didn't have a coat. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Welcome to your temporary accommodations," Adrian said, gesturing toward the building. His tone was neutral, almost businesslike, but Sophia caught something else underneath. Uncertainty, maybe, as if he wasn't quite sure how to handle a situation where someone was in his world, but not of his world. Sophia clutched the small duffel bag one of Adrian's men had allowed her to pack from her apartment. 20 minutes to gather a life into 40 pounds of fabric and necessities. She'd grabbed clothes, toiletries, her grandmother's rosary, a photograph of her parents. Everything else, the chipped coffee mugs, the secondhand furniture, the stack of overdue bills, she'd left behind like artifacts of a person who no longer existed. "How long have you owned this place?" Sophia asked as they climbed the stone steps. Speaking felt safer than silence, safer than thinking about what she'd just agreed to. 8 years. It was a gift to myself when I turned 30. Adrian produced a key, an actual metal key, not the electronic fobs Sophia expected someone like him would use. My father believed in flash, penthouse apartments, modern everything. I prefer history, permanence. The door opened into a foyer that stole Sophia's breath. Marble floors in a black and white checkerboard pattern, a curved staircase with a mahogany banister, crown molding that probably cost more than her annual salary. But it wasn't ostentatious. There was restraint here, elegance, like Adrian himself, power wrapped in control. "The building has 4 residential floors," Adrian explained as they entered. 2 security men followed at a discreet distance while another stayed outside. "I use the first floor as an office occasionally. The second and third floors are guest accommodations. The fourth is mine. You'll stay on the 3rd floor. Completely private, separate entrance if you need it, and my men will be stationed throughout the building." "A beautiful prison," Sophia murmured, then immediately regretted it when Adrian's eyes sharpened. "Not a prison. Protection." His voice was firm but not angry. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Sophia met his gaze, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. "I can't leave. I can't go to work. I can't contact my friends without your people monitoring it. How is that different?" Adrian was quiet for a moment, his jaw working as if considering how much honesty to offer. Finally, he said, "Because you're here by choice and because the door isn't locked. You can walk out anytime you want. I won't stop you." He paused. "But I can't protect you if you do." The weight of that statement settled over Sophia like snow, cold, suffocating, impossible to ignore. She followed Adrian up the stairs, her sneakers silent on the plush carpet runner. The 3rd floor opened into an apartment that would have housed 3 families in her neighborhood. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street, furniture that looked antique but sat like it was brand new. "Kitchen's fully stocked," Adrian said, moving through the space with casual familiarity. "TV has every streaming service. Wi-Fi password is on the counter. There are books in the study. Art supplies if you need them. I wasn't sure what you'd want to do with your time." "You've done this before," Sophia said, setting her duffel on the leather couch. "Had someone stay here like this?" "Not like this." Adrian turned to face her, and for the first time since the diner, his composure cracked slightly. "Usually it's business associates, family members passing through, people who understand the life. You're—" He trailed off, searching for the right word. "The charity case?" Sophia supplied, sharper than she intended. "Different," Adrian finished. "You're different." The way he said it made Sophia's stomach flutter in a way that had nothing to do with fear. She pushed the feeling down, hard. This man was dangerous. His world was dangerous. Whatever was happening here, she couldn't afford to forget that. "I need to make some calls," Adrian continued, pulling out his phone. "Get you set up properly. Tomorrow, some people will come by. A doctor to check you over, someone to take measurements for clothes." "I don't need charity," Sophia interrupted. "I didn't help you to get—" "I know." Adrian's voice was gentle but absolute. "This isn't charity. It's necessity. You left your life because of me. The least I can do is ensure you're comfortable while we fix this." He moved toward the door, then paused. "There's a landline in the bedroom. It's secure. If you need anything at all, dial 0. Someone will answer." "Adrian," Sophia called as he reached the doorway. He turned, eyebrow raised. "Why are you really doing this, and don't say it's just about the coat?" For a long moment, Adrian simply looked at her, those gray eyes searching her face as if trying to solve a puzzle. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than she'd heard it all day. "Because in my entire life I can count on one hand the number of people who've done something for me without wanting something back. My mother when she was alive, my sister sometimes, a friend from childhood who died young." He paused. "And now you. That's rare enough to protect, rare enough to matter." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving Sophia alone in the most beautiful apartment she'd ever seen, feeling more trapped than she'd ever felt in her tiny studio. The first night was the worst. Sophia barely slept, lying in a bed so soft it felt like floating, staring at the ornate ceiling medallion and trying to process the surreal turn her life had taken. Every creak of the old building made her jump. Every car passing on the street below made her wonder if it was the Russos, whoever they were, coming to make good on threats she didn't understand. She called Jenny from the secure landline, keeping the conversation vague per Adrian's instructions. Family emergency was the official story. Out of town for a week or two. Jenny had sounded worried but accepting, promising to cover Sophia's shifts. Sophia wondered if Jenny knew more than she was saying, if the whole neighborhood was already whispering about Sophia Moretti and the Mancini family. By morning, Sophia had made a decision. If she was going to be stuck here, she wasn't going to sit idle. She explored the apartment methodically, cataloging every room, every exit, every detail. The study contained hundreds of books, fiction, history, philosophy, even some in Italian. The kitchen had ingredients Sophia had only dreamed of affording. The bathroom had a clawfoot tub deep enough to drown in. It was a cage, yes, but a gilded one. Around 10 a.m. there was a knock at the door. Sophia tensed, then remembered Adrian's words. She opened it to find a woman in her 50s, professionally dressed, carrying a leather medical bag. "Good morning, Miss Moretti. I'm Dr. Helen Caruso. Mr. Mancini asked me to make sure you're in good health." Her smile was warm, genuine. "May I come in?" The examination was thorough but kind. Dr. Caruso checked Sophia's blood pressure, listened to her heart, asked questions about her medical history with the gentle persistence of someone who'd dealt with frightened patients before. Sophia found herself relaxing, answering honestly. "You're a little underweight, doctor," Caruso noted, making notes on a tablet. "And your iron's probably low. I can see it in your nail beds. Are you eating regularly?" "When I can afford to," Sophia admitted, then felt embarrassed by the honesty. Dr. Caruso's expression softened. "Mr. Mancini mentioned you work double shifts frequently. That takes a toll." She pulled out a bottle of vitamins from her bag. "Take these with food twice a day, and eat more protein. There's plenty in the kitchen downstairs." Doctor's orders. After Dr. Caruso left, a tailor arrived, an elderly Italian man named Giuseppe, who spoke more Italian than English and measured Sophia with the precision of someone creating art rather than clothing. He promised 5 outfits within 2 days, custom-made, and refused to discuss payment. "Il Signore has handled everything," he said with a knowing smile. Sophia was beginning to understand that arguing was pointless. The afternoon stretched long and strange. Sophia tried to read but couldn't focus. She attempted to watch TV, but everything felt trivial compared to her reality. Finally, around 4 p.m., she found herself in the kitchen, doing the one thing that had always calmed her: cooking. The ingredients available were almost overwhelming. Fresh pasta, San Marzano tomatoes, real Parmigiano Reggiano, herbs that looked like they'd been picked that morning. Sophia rolled up her sleeves and started preparing the meal her grandmother had taught her. A simple pomodoro sauce, but made with care, with love, with the ritual of transformation that cooking always provided. She was so absorbed in the work, the rhythm of chopping garlic, the sizzle of olive oil, the aroma of basil filling the air, that she didn't hear footsteps on the stairs, didn't notice she wasn't alone until a voice spoke from the doorway. "That smells incredible." Sophia spun around, wooden spoon in hand, to find Adrian leaning against the doorframe. He'd shed his suit jacket and tie, rolled up his shirt sleeves, looking more human than he had in the diner, more like the man who'd sat shivering on a rainy street. "I didn't hear you come in," Sophia said, pressing a hand to her racing heart. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you." Adrian moved into the kitchen with careful steps, as if entering a space he didn't quite have permission to occupy. "I came to check on you, see if you needed anything." "I'm fine." Sophia turned back to her sauce, stirring to give her hand something to do. "Your doctor was very kind, so was the tailor." "Good." Adrian moved to the opposite counter, maintaining distance. Have they been treating you well? The security team? They're invisible mostly. I barely see them. Sophia tasted the sauce, added a pinch of salt. Is that intentional? The invisibility? Yes. They're there to protect you, not intimidate you. Adrian watched her work with curious eyes. You cook, obviously. Sophia couldn't help the small smile. It's what I do when I'm stressed, or happy, or basically any emotional state. My grandmother taught me. She said cooking was love made visible. Smart woman. The smartest. Sophia's throat tightened. She passed 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. Adrian's voice carried genuine sympathy. My mother died 5 years ago. Different circumstances, but the loss, it doesn't fade, does it? Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past the power and the danger to something surprisingly vulnerable. No, she said softly, it doesn't. For a moment, they simply existed in the kitchen together. Two people connected by loss, by circumstance, by a strange twist of fate that neither had planned. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was almost peaceful. Are you hungry? Sophia asked, surprising herself. I made too much. I always make too much. Adrian's expression shifted. Surprise, then something warmer. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in longer than I care to admit. Then sit. Sophia gestured to the small breakfast table by the window. 5 minutes. She plated the pasta with care. Simple but perfect, the way her grandmother had taught her. Brought it to the table along with glasses of water. Adrian waited until she sat before taking his first bite. His eyes closed. My God. Good? Sophia asked, already knowing the answer from his reaction. Better than good. This is... Adrian took another bite, chewing slowly. This is what my mother used to make. Before everything got complicated. Before the business consumed everything. They ate in comfortable silence, the November light fading outside, the city sounds muffled by the thick windows. Sophia watched Adrian eat with genuine pleasure. No pretense, no calculation. Just a man enjoying a meal. When they finished, Adrian leaned back, looking more relaxed than Sophia had yet seen him. Thank you. For this. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, Sophia interrupted. You're keeping me safe. Feeding you dinner is the least I can do. Adrian smiled. A real smile, not the careful half-expression she'd seen before. Most people in your position would be angry, resentful, but you made dinner. What good would anger do? Sophia shrugged. I can't change where I am. Might as well make the best of it. Practical. Adrian stood, gathering the plates. I like that. What are you doing? Sophia asked as he carried them to the sink. Dishes. Fair trade. They worked side by side, washing and drying in the kind of domestic normalcy that felt absurd given the circumstances. But Sophia found herself relaxing, found herself almost enjoying the simple rhythm of the task. Can I ask you something? Sophia ventured, as she dried the last plate. About that night. Why were you really on the street? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, hands still in the soapy water. My father ran the family with an iron fist. Fear and money. That's all he understood. When he died and I took over, I promised myself I'd be different, that I'd understand the world I was operating in, not just the boardrooms and back rooms. He pulled the plug, watching the water drain. So sometimes I go out, see what people do when they think no one important is watching. It keeps me honest, keeps me human. And what did you learn that night? Sophia asked quietly. Adrian turned to face her, and his eyes held something raw, something true. That kindness still exists, even when it shouldn't. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs something. He paused. Thank you for that lesson, Sophia. It's one I needed. Before Sophia could respond, one of Adrian's security team appeared in the doorway, his expression urgent. Boss, we need to talk. Now. The moment shattered. Adrian's demeanor shifted instantly, the vulnerability disappearing behind walls of steel. What is it? The Russos made contact. They want a meeting. Tomorrow night. The security guard's eyes flicked to Sophia, and they specifically mentioned her, by name. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Adrian's jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists at his sides. Set it up, he said quietly, each word precise and cold. Neutral ground, maximum security, and make it clear, she's off limits, completely. The guard nodded and disappeared. Adrian stood there for a moment, tension radiating from him like heat. Then he turned to Sophia, and his expression was the most serious she'd seen. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Sophia thought about the last 3 days, the coat in the rain, the invasion of the diner, the gilded cage she now inhabited. Thought about this dangerous, complicated man who'd shown her fragments of humanity between the violence of his world. "Yes," she said finally, "I think I can." The rain returned with a vengeance on the night of the meeting, as if the city itself understood the gravity of what was about to unfold. Sophia stood at the third-floor window, watching water stream down the glass, distorting the streetlights below into abstract smears of gold and white. Somewhere out there, Adrian was preparing to meet with people who wanted to use her as leverage, as a weapon, as collateral damage in a war she didn't understand. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, her breath fogging the window. 2 days had passed since the security guard delivered his message. 2 days of Adrian becoming increasingly tense, his visits to check on her growing shorter, more distracted. 2 days of Sophia realizing how much she'd come to depend on those brief moments of normalcy they'd carved out. Shared meals, quiet conversations, the illusion that they were just 2 people rather than a waitress and a mob boss trapped in impossible circumstances. Behind her, the apartment felt emptier than usual. The security presence had tripled. She'd counted at least 6 different men rotating through the building, their faces grim, their weapons no longer concealed. Whatever was happening tonight, everyone understood the stakes. A knock at the door made her turn. "Come in." It was Marcus, the security team leader she'd come to recognize. A mountain of a man with kind eyes and a Brooklyn accent. "Miss Moretti, Mr. Mancini asked me to brief you on tonight's situation." Sophia moved to the couch, gesturing for him to sit. He remained standing, always on duty, always alert. "What do I need to know?" "The meeting's at 11 p.m. Neutral ground, a warehouse in Port Richmond that neither family owns. Mr. Mancini will have 8 men with him. The Russos will match that number." Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. "The boss wants you to understand that no matter what you hear, no matter what gets said, you're safe. This building is locked down tighter than Fort Knox." "What do they want?" Sophia asked, even though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Marcus hesitated, clearly weighing how much to share. "The Russos have been looking for an excuse to renegotiate territory agreements. Your situation with Mr. Mancini, gave them an opening. They're claiming he's gone soft, that he's compromising family security for." He trailed off uncomfortably. "For a waitress," Sophia finished flatly. "They think I'm a weakness. They think you're leverage," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference. Mr. Mancini's making it clear tonight that you're under his protection. That touching you, threatening you, even looking at you wrong, it means war." The casual way he said that last word made Sophia's blood run cold. "People could die because of me. People could die because the Russos are ambitious and stupid," Marcus corrected firmly. "This isn't about you, Miss Moretti, you're just the excuse. If it wasn't you, it would be something else. A disputed drug route, a gambling territory, a perceived slight. That's how this world works." Sophia wanted to believe him, but the guilt sat heavy in her chest like a stone. When will he be back? Late. Maybe not until morning. "He wanted me to tell you not to wait up." Marcus moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I've worked for Mr. Mancini for 7 years. I've never seen him like this about anyone. Whatever you think you are to him, you matter more than you know." After Marcus left, Sophia tried to distract herself. She cooked, she read, she even attempted to sleep. Nothing worked. Her mind kept returning to Adrian in a warehouse somewhere, surrounded by violence and threat, because she'd given him a coat in the rain. At 11:17 p.m., her phone buzzed, the secure phone Adrian had given her. A text message, just 3 words, "Everything is fine." But Sophia knew better. She'd grown up in Philadelphia, had heard enough stories to understand that fine in this world meant something very different than it did in hers. The hours crawled past midnight, then 1 a.m., then 2. Sophia sat curled on the couch, her grandmother's rosary wrapped around her fingers, praying to a God she wasn't sure was listening. Praying that whatever happened tonight, Adrian would come back. That the strange, fragile thing growing between them, trust, maybe, or understanding, or something she was afraid to name, wouldn't end in blood and regret. At 3:47 a.m., she heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, uneven. The apartment door opened and Adrian stepped through. Sophia was on her feet instantly, her heart lurching. He looked like he'd been through hell, his shirt torn at the collar, a bruise blooming along his jaw, his knuckles split and bloody. But he was alive. He was here. "You're hurt," she said, moving toward him without thinking. "It's nothing." Adrian's voice was rough, exhausted. But his eyes, those gray eyes that had first startled her on a rainy street, they softened when they landed on her. You should be asleep. Like I could sleep. Sophia reached for his hand, examining the damaged knuckles. What happened? Are you… I'm fine. It's handled. Adrian let her hold his hand. Didn't pull away even though he must have been in pain. The Russos understand now. You're off limits. Completely. What did you do? Sophia whispered, though part of her didn't want to know. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of violence she'd only glimpsed before. What I had to. What I've been trained to do since I was 16 years old. He met her eyes, unflinching. I'm not a good man, Sophia. I've done things that would horrify you, tonight included. But I keep my promises, and I promised to keep you safe. Sophia should have been afraid. Should have pulled away from this man who'd just admitted to violence, to a life so far removed from her own that they might as well be different species. But instead, she found herself pulling him toward the kitchen, toward the light. Sit, she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. Let me clean those cuts before they get infected. Adrian obeyed without argument, lowering himself into a chair like every muscle in his body hurt. Sophia gathered supplies, first aid kit from under the sink, a bowl of warm water, clean towels. She worked in silence, cleaning the blood from his knuckles with gentle efficiency, her grandmother's voice in her head. Take care of the wounded. Everyone deserves that kindness. You don't have to do this, Adrian said quietly as she dabbed antiseptic on the worst of the cuts. He winced, but didn't pull away. Yes, I do. Sophia focused on her work, on the careful application of butterfly bandages. Just like you didn't have to protect me. But here we are. Here we are, Adrian echoed, and something in his tone made Sophia look up. He was watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with pain, everything to do with something far more dangerous than violence. The air between them shifted, charged with an electricity Sophia had been trying to ignore for days. They were too close. His hand was still in hers. The apartment was too quiet, too intimate. The rest of the world falling away until there was nothing but this moment, this man, this impossible situation. Sophia, Adrian said, his voice dropping to something almost vulnerable. You should know the Russos, they asked what you were to me, what you meant. What did you tell them? Sophia's hands stilled, her heart hammering against her ribs. The truth. Adrian's free hand came up slowly, carefully, giving her every chance to pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek with devastating gentleness. That you're under my protection, that you're important, that anyone who touches you answers to me personally. That's not the whole truth though, is it? Sophia whispered, her breath catching as his thumb traced her jawline. We both know there's more to this than protection. Adrian's eyes searched hers, and Sophia saw the war happening behind them. Duty versus desire, control versus chaos. I can't. You deserve better than this world. Better than what I can offer. What if I don't want better? The words escaped before Sophia could stop them, before her rational mind could intervene. What if I want this? Whatever this is. You don't know what you're saying. But Adrian didn't pull away. If anything, he leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. I'm dangerous, Sophia. Everything about my life is dangerous. I told myself I was keeping you here for protection, but the truth is, he closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they held something raw and honest. The truth is, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that night, about how you looked at me with kindness when everyone else looks at me with fear, about how you gave me something without asking for anything back, about how you're sitting here bandaging my hands after He stopped himself. After what I did tonight. Sophia's hand moved to his face, cupping his bruised jaw with infinite care. You're not the monster you think you are, Adrian. Monsters don't sit in the rain testing humanity. Monsters don't keep their promises. Monsters don't look at someone like me the way you're looking at me right now. And how am I looking at you? His voice was barely audible. Like I matter, Sophia whispered. Like I'm something precious. Like maybe you're just as scared of this as I am. Adrian made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a groan. Terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. Because everyone I've ever cared about either leaves or gets hurt, and the thought of that happening to you, his hand covered hers where it rested against his face. I can't let that happen. So what do we do? Sophia asked, even though she knew there was no good answer. No safe path through the minefield they'd stumbled into. I don't know. Adrian's admission hung between them like a confession. For the first time in my life, I genuinely don't know the right move. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to push you away, to send you back to your life before you get pulled deeper into mine. But He stopped, swallowed hard. I don't want to. God help me, I don't want to let you go. The kiss, when it happened, was inevitable. Sophia couldn't have said who moved first. Maybe they both did, closing the distance simultaneously, drawn together by gravity or fate or simple human need. Adrian's lips were gentle despite the violence his hands had committed hours before, careful and questioning, as if she might disappear if he held on too tight. Sophia kissed him back with all the confused emotion of the past week, fear and gratitude and something deeper, something that had been building since she'd seen him shivering on that rainy street. His hand threaded through her hair, and she felt him tremble slightly, felt the vulnerability beneath the power. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea," he murmured. "The worst," Sophia agreed. But she didn't let go. "You could still leave. I could set you up somewhere safe, give you money to start over. You don't have to stay in this." "And if I want to stay?" Sophia pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "Not because I'm trapped, not because I'm afraid, but because I choose to." "What then?" Adrian looked at her like she was speaking a language he'd never learned, like the concept of someone choosing him, choosing his world, was completely foreign. "Then I'd spend every day trying to be worthy of that choice, and probably failing." "You're already worthy," Sophia said firmly. "You just don't see it yet." A sound from downstairs, footsteps, voices, broke the moment. Adrian straightened, his expression shifting back to something guarded, controlled. "That'll be Marcus with the security brief. I know." Sophia stepped back, giving him space, giving them both space to breathe. "Go. Do what you need to do." Adrian stood, wincing slightly, and Sophia realized for the first time how exhausted he looked, how much the weight of his world pressed down on him every moment of every day. He moved toward the door, then paused. "Sophia, what you said earlier, about me not being a monster." His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "I need you to understand something. I've killed people, ordered deaths, destroyed lives. That's not hyperbole or posturing. That's fact." "I know." Sophia held his gaze steadily. "Or at least I suspected. But you know what? You're still the man who sits on street corners testing humanity, who kept his promise to protect me, who looked devastated at the thought of me getting hurt. Monsters don't do those things, Adrian. Complicated men do. Flawed men, but not monsters." Something flickered in his expression, hope maybe, or the ghost of something he'd thought he'd lost. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next, about what you want." "What I want?" Sophia asked, surprised he was giving her a choice. "Your life, your future, whether you want to go back to the diner or..." He hesitated. "Or if there's something else you'd rather do. I owe you that much. Options. Freedom to choose." After he left, Sophia stood alone in the kitchen, her lips still tingling, her heart still racing. She touched her fingers to her mouth, trying to process what had just happened. She'd kissed a mob boss. She'd told him she wanted to stay in his world. She'd chosen, with full awareness of the consequences, to step deeper into the darkness instead of running toward the light. Her grandmother would have been horrified, or maybe not. Nona had always said that love, real love, wasn't about safety. It was about finding someone who saw you, truly saw you, and chose you anyway. Was that what this was? Love? Or just the adrenaline and proximity of a crisis creating false intimacy? Sophia didn't know, but as she cleaned up the first aid supplies and prepared for bed, she realized something important. For the first time since that rainy night, she wasn't counting the days until she could leave. She wasn't planning her escape or calculating when it would be safe to return to her normal life. Because normal, her studio apartment, her double shifts, her predictable existence, suddenly felt like the cage. And this beautiful brownstone, this dangerous man, this impossible situation, it felt like the first breath of freedom she'd had in years. Tomorrow would bring new complications, new dangers, new choices. But tonight, Sophia let herself feel what she'd been fighting since the beginning. Hope. Not for safety or normalcy, but for something bigger, something worth the risk, something real. Morning came with the pale, hesitant light of late November, the kind that promised cold but no snow. Sophia woke to the sound of voices downstairs, urgent, controlled, the tone that meant something was wrong. She'd learned to distinguish the different types of urgency in Adrian's world. There was business urgent, which meant deals and negotiations, and there was danger urgent, which meant threats and violence. This was danger urgent. She threw on clothes, jeans, and one of the sweaters Giuseppe had delivered, cashmere so soft it felt like sin, and hurried downstairs. The second-floor landing was crowded with security personnel, all focused on Adrian's voice coming from his first-floor office. The door was half open, and Sophia could see him pacing, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing sharply. "I don't care what Russo says his intentions are," Adrian was saying, his voice ice-cold. "He had 3 of his men watching this building last night. That's not observation, that's reconnaissance." A pause. "No, we hold position. Nobody moves unless I give the order." Marcus spotted Sophia on the stairs and immediately moved to intercept her, but Adrian's eyes had already found her. Something in his expression shifted, softened for just a fraction of a second, before hardening back into the mask of leadership. He ended the call and gestured for her to come down. "Marcus, give us the room." The security team filed out with military precision, closing the door behind them. Adrian's office was all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with law books and what Sophia suspected were ledgers of the less-than-legal variety. A photograph on the desk caught her eye. A younger Adrian with a beautiful dark-haired woman and a girl who must have been his sister. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," Adrian said, moving to a sideboard and pouring 2 glasses of water from a crystal decanter. He handed one to Sophia, and she noticed his hands were steadier than hers. "The situation with the Russos is escalating faster than I anticipated." "What happened?" Sophia accepted the water but didn't drink, her stomach too tight with anxiety. "Last night's meeting didn't end things. It just drew clearer battle lines." Adrian leaned against his desk, exhaustion evident in the shadows under his eyes. He'd changed clothes, another impeccable suit, but the bruise on his jaw had darkened overnight, a violent purple against his skin. "Dominic Russo is ambitious. He's been looking for an excuse to challenge my authority for 2 years. You gave him that excuse. So this is my fault." Sophia's voice was flat, accepting. "No." Adrian's response was immediate and fierce. "This is his fault for being a predator who sees weakness where there's only humanity." "But," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "I need to make a choice. About you, about us, about what happens next." Sophia's heart stuttered. "What kind of choice?" "The smart choice, the safe choice, is to send you away. Out of state, new identity, enough money to start over anywhere you want. My people can make it look like you disappeared, like I lost interest. It would diffuse the situation, remove you as a target." "But?" Sophia could hear the unspoken word hanging in the air. Adrian met her eyes, and Sophia saw the war happening behind his carefully controlled expression. "But that would be a lie. I haven't lost interest. If anything, He stopped, ran a hand through his dark hair in a gesture of frustration. "I'm trying to do the right thing here, Sophia. Trying to give you an out before you're in so deep there's no escape. Maybe I don't want an out." Sophia set down her water glass and moved closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes. "You asked me last night what I wanted. I'm telling you now. I want to stay. Not because I'm afraid to leave, not because I feel obligated. Because I choose this, I choose you. You don't know what you're choosing," Adrian said roughly, but he didn't step back when she closed the distance between them. "My world. It's not just danger, Sophia. It's compromise. It's looking the other way when things happen that would horrify you. It's knowing that the money that pays for all of this," he gestured around the office, "comes from sources that aren't always clean. It's accepting that the man you're choosing has blood on his hands. Literally. I know." Sophia's hand found his, threading their fingers together despite the bandages still covering his knuckles. "I'm not naive, Adrian. I know what you are, what your family does. But I also know that you could have left me alone after that night in the rain. You could have sent money, sent protection from a distance, kept your hands clean of the whole situation. Instead, you brought me here. You've been honest with me. You've treated me like I matter. You do matter." Adrian's free hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "That's the problem. You matter too much. If something happened to you because of me, because of this world, then that would be my choice too." Sophia interrupted. "You can't protect me from everything, Adrian. You can't shield me from every consequence. All you can do is trust me to make my own decisions. And I'm deciding to stay." For a long moment, Adrian simply looked at her, and Sophia watched something fundamental shift in his expression. The careful control cracked, revealing the man underneath, vulnerable, yearning, afraid of wanting something he believed he couldn't have. "If you stay," he said slowly, Everything changes. The Russos will see you as my weakness, which means you become their primary target. Other families will watch, will judge, will try to use you as leverage. You'll need constant protection. Your freedom will be limited. And there's no guarantee. His voice caught slightly. There's no guarantee I can keep you safe, no matter how hard I try. I understand. Sophia squeezed his hand. But I'd rather face that danger with you than spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Wondering if I was brave enough to choose something real instead of something safe. Adrian pulled her into his arms with sudden, fierce intensity, burying his face in her hair. Sophia felt him shaking slightly, felt the careful facade he maintained for his world completely dissolve in the privacy of this moment. She wrapped her arms around him and held on, offering the same comfort he'd been offering her: presence, acceptance, the knowledge that someone saw all of you and stayed anyway. I don't deserve this, Adrian murmured against her hair. Don't deserve you. Stop deciding what you deserve, Sophia said firmly, pulling back enough to meet his eyes. Let me decide that, and I decide you're worth it. All of it. The kiss was different from the night before. No longer questioning but claiming. A declaration and a promise wrapped together. Adrian kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning, like she was solid ground after years of free fall. Sophia kissed him back with all the certainty she felt, all the choice she was making with eyes wide open. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, you stay, but we do this right. I'm not hiding you, not pretending you're just under protection. If you're staying as... He paused, searching for the right words. As what? Sophia prompted. As mine. The possessiveness in his tone should have been alarming, but instead it sent heat through Sophia's veins. The world needs to know you're not a weakness to exploit. You're someone I've chosen, someone under my protection, not out of obligation but because you matter to me. That changes the equation, makes you dangerous to touch. How do we do that? Sophia asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Tonight there's a dinner, family business but also political, city councilmen, judges, people who keep the machine running. I was planning to go alone, make appearances, reinforce alliances. Adrian's eyes searched hers. But if you come with me, if I introduce you properly, it sends a message, a very clear message, that I'm your girlfriend. The word felt strange, inadequate for whatever they actually were. That you're mine, Adrian corrected. Labels are flexible in my world, but possession, that's understood, that's respected. If you're at my side tonight, everyone will know you're not just someone I'm protecting. You're someone who chose to be there, someone who matters. Sophia thought about the waitress uniform hanging in her old apartment, the grease-stained apron, the tips carefully counted at the end of each shift. Thought about the life she'd been living, safe, predictable, slowly suffocating in its sameness. Then she thought about the man in front of her, dangerous and complicated, and offering her a choice that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. What do I wear to a mob dinner? She asked, and watched Adrian's expression transform into something between relief and joy. Leave that to me, he said, pulling her close again. Just be yourself. That's all I need you to be. The dress arrived at 4 p.m., delivered by a woman named Isabella, who introduced herself as Adrian's sister. She was stunning, the same dark hair and sharp features as Adrian, but with warmer eyes and a smile that actually reached them. So you're the one who's got my brother tied up in knots, Isabella said, sweeping into the apartment with the confidence of someone who'd never been unwelcome anywhere. She carried 2 garment bags and a makeup case that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly rent used to be. I'm Sophia, Sophia said, immediately liking this woman despite her own nervousness. It's nice to meet you. Nice? Isabella laughed, a genuine sound full of warmth. Honey, I'm thrilled to meet you. Adrian hasn't brought anyone to a family dinner in 5 years, not since... She stopped herself, her expression flickering to something sad. Well, that's a story for another time. Right now, we need to make you look like the woman who brought my terrifying older brother to his knees. The dress was midnight blue, elegant without being ostentatious, with clean lines that would have looked at home in any era. Sophia stared at it, overwhelmed. This is too much. I can't. You can and you will, Isabella said firmly, already pulling Sophia toward the bedroom. Look, I know this world is insane. Trust me, I grew up in it and I still think half of it is ridiculous. But appearances matter, especially at these things. You need to look like you belong at Adrian's side. Like you're not intimidated by any of the peacocks who'll be preening tonight. Over the next 2 hours, Isabella worked magic. She did Sophia's makeup, subtle but striking, emphasizing her dark eyes and the curve of her lips. She styled Sophia's hair into an elegant updo that looked effortless but was secured with enough pins to survive a hurricane. And she talked, sharing stories about Adrian as a child, about their mother, about the weight of the family legacy. "He tries so hard to be what our father was," Isabella said as she fastened a delicate diamond necklace around Sophia's neck. "A loan," she insisted, "not a gift. But the truth is, Adrian's nothing like Dad. Dad was cold, calculating, ruthless. Adrian, he feels everything, he just hides it better. That's why he's so dangerous, actually. People underestimate him because they mistake his humanity for weakness." "Is that what I'm doing?" Sophia asked quietly. "Mistaking who he is?" Isabella met her eyes in the mirror, and her expression was serious. "No, I think you're the first person in a long time who's actually seeing him clearly. All of him. The good, the bad, the complicated. And you're staying anyway. That's..." She paused, her eyes suspiciously bright. "That's what he needs. Someone who sees the man, not just the name." When Sophia was finally ready, Isabella stepped back and whistled low. "Damn, my brother's going to lose his mind." Sophia looked at herself in the full-length mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked sophisticated, confident, powerful. She looked like someone who belonged in Adrian Mancini's world. But underneath the dress and the makeup and the borrowed diamonds, she was still Sophia Moretti, a waitress from Fishtown who'd given her coat to a stranger in the rain. That woman was still there, still real. And that, Sophia realized, was exactly what Adrian needed her to be. Adrian was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, dressed in a tuxedo that fit him like it had been painted on. He looked up as Sophia descended, and the expression that crossed his face made every moment of preparation worth it. He looked stunned, awed, like he was seeing something miraculous. "Sophia," he breathed as she reached the bottom step. "You're acceptable?" Sophia supplied with a nervous smile. "Devastating." Adrian took her hand, raising it to his lips in a gesture that was somehow both old-fashioned and intimate. "Absolutely devastating. Every man in that room is going to hate me tonight." "Good," Isabella called from upstairs. "Let them hate you. Maybe they'll stop underestimating you." Adrian's driver, a silent professional man named Vincent, had the car ready. Another black sedan, but this one even more luxurious, with leather seats and privacy glass. As they pulled away from the brownstone, Adrian took Sophia's hand. "Last chance," he said quietly. "We can turn around. You can stay home, stay safe. No one would blame you." Sophia squeezed his hand. "I'm not turning around. I told you. I choose this. I choose you." Adrian raised her hand to his lips again, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Then let's show them what choosing looks like." The restaurant, La Familia, an upscale Italian place in Old City, had been closed to the public for the night. Only invited guests, only family business. As they pulled up to the valet stand, Sophia saw other cars arriving, disgorging men in expensive suits and women dripping with jewelry. This wasn't just dinner. This was theater, performance, a carefully orchestrated display of power. "Stay close to me," Adrian murmured as Vincent opened their door. "Don't let anyone intimidate you. You belong here because I say you belong here. Remember that." They stepped out together, and Sophia felt the weight of every eye that turned their way. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Speculation, curiosity, judgment. But Adrian's hand was steady on the small of her back, guiding her forward with absolute confidence. Inside, the restaurant had been transformed into something between a wedding reception and a summit meeting. Tables draped in white linen, candles everywhere, flowers that probably cost more than Sophia used to make in a month. But underneath the elegance was tension. Conversations that stopped when certain people walked by, glances exchanged across the room, the careful dance of alliances and rivalries. And at a table in the center of the room, surrounded by his own men, sat a man who could only be Dominic Russo. He was older than Adrian, maybe 50, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that were calculating rather than cruel. When he saw Adrian and Sophia, those eyes sharpened with interest. "Mancini," Russo called out, his voice carrying across the room. "I see you brought a guest. How unexpected." The entire restaurant fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to watch this confrontation. Adrian's hand tightened slightly on Sophia's back, the only sign of tension. When he spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, carrying the absolute authority of someone who'd never doubted his right to command. Dominic, allow me to introduce Sophia Moretti. Sophia, this is Dominic Russo, a business associate. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees with that introduction. Not acquaintance, not rival. Business associate. A calculated insult wrapped in civility. Russo's eyes narrowed, but his smile never wavered. Moretti, Italian, third generation, Sophia said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. My grandmother came from Napoli. Napoli. Russo's smile widened slightly. Good people, the Napolitani. Survivors. They know how to adapt to changing circumstances. His eyes flicked to Adrian. An important skill in our world. Indeed, Adrian said coolly. Shall we sit? I believe dinner is about to be served. They moved to their table, positioned strategically where Adrian could see the entire room. Isabella was already there with her husband, along with several of Adrian's key people. As Sophia sat, Isabella caught her eye and gave a subtle thumbs up. The dinner was surreal. Course after course of exquisite food that Sophia barely tasted, surrounded by conversations that were equal parts business negotiation and verbal warfare. Adrian's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently whenever tensions rose. She squeezed back, offering silent support. Halfway through the main course, Russo stood, tapping his wine glass for attention. A toast, he announced, his voice carrying that same dangerous pleasantness. To old friends, new alliances, and the beautiful women who remind us what we're fighting for. His eyes landed on Sophia with pointed significance. The threat was clear. She was a target, a weakness, a vulnerability to be exploited. But then Adrian stood, his posture relaxed, but his eyes lethal. When he spoke, every word was a declaration of war wrapped in civility. To the women who choose us, Adrian said, his hand finding Sophia's shoulder, who see exactly who we are and stay anyway, who make us better than we deserve to be. And to anyone foolish enough to mistake their presence for weakness, his smile was cold enough to freeze blood. Remember that a man with nothing to lose is predictable, but a man protecting what he loves, that man is limitless. The room erupted in applause and raised glasses, but Sophia saw what everyone else missed, the flash of genuine fear in Russo's eyes. Because Adrian had just told the entire Philadelphia underworld exactly what Sophia meant to him, and in doing so, he'd made her the most protected and most dangerous woman in the city. The ride back to the brownstone was silent, but it was the kind of silence that hummed with unspoken words, with the weight of what had just happened. Sophia stared out the window at Philadelphia's nighttime landscape, the historic streets giving way to the gentrified neighborhoods, the ever-present pulse of a city that never truly slept. Her hand was still intertwined with Adrian's, his thumb tracing absent circles on her palm, a gesture that seemed unconscious but spoke volumes. Vincent pulled up to the brownstone just after midnight. The security presence had doubled since they'd left. Sophia counted at least 4 men visible on the street, and she knew there were more she couldn't see. The declaration Adrian had made at dinner had changed everything. They'd crossed a line from which there was no return. Inside, Adrian shed his tuxedo jacket with a sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. He loosened his bow tie, rolled up his sleeves, and for a moment just stood in the foyer, looking more exhausted than Sophia had ever seen him. Come upstairs, he said quietly. To my floor. We need to talk. Sophia had never been to the 4th floor, Adrian's private domain. She followed him up the stairs, her heart beating faster with each step. The top floor was different from the guest accommodations below. More personal, the walls were painted a deep charcoal gray, and the furniture was a mix of modern and antique, pieces that looked like they'd been chosen for meaning rather than decoration. Adrian led her to a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter, handed one to Sophia, and then stood at the window staring out at the glittering lights. I need you to understand what I just did tonight, he said, his voice low. What it means. Sophia set down her untouched whiskey and moved to stand beside him. You told everyone I matter to you, that I'm under your protection. More than that. Adrian turned to face her, and in the dim light his eyes were dark, intense. I told them you're mine, that anyone who touches you is declaring war on the Mancini family. I painted a target on your back and simultaneously made you untouchable. It's the most dangerous and safest position you could possibly be in. I know, Sophia said simply. I was there. I heard you. Do you understand what that means for your life going forward? Adrian's voice was urgent now, almost desperate. You can't go back to the diner. You can't go back to your apartment. Every single thing you do from now on will be watched, analyzed, judged. Your freedom, the very thing that made you give me that coat in the first place, I've taken it from you. Sophia reached up and cupped his face, feeling the tension in his jaw, the barely contained control that was always just beneath his surface. You didn't take anything from me, Adrian. I gave it, freely, with full understanding of what I was choosing. But did you? Adrian caught her wrist gently, holding her hand against his face. Did you really understand? Because once we cross this line completely, once you're not just under my protection but actually part of my life, there's no going back. You become a part of this world, all of it. The violence, the compromises, the blood that never quite washes off. I know, Sophia repeated, her voice steady. And I'm still choosing it. I'm choosing you. Something in Adrian's expression cracked, the last wall of defense crumbling. He pulled her into his arms with a fierceness that bordered on desperation, holding her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip. Sophia wrapped her arms around him and held on just as tightly, feeling the tremors running through his body. I've never been afraid before, Adrian confessed against her hair. Not like this. I've faced down rivals, survived assassination attempts, made decisions that kept me awake for nights. But none of that terrified me the way you do. The thought of something happening to you because of me, it's unbearable. Then we'll be unbearable together, Sophia said, pulling back to meet his eyes. You don't have to carry this alone anymore, Adrian. Let me in, all the way in. Let me be part of your world, not just someone you're protecting from it. Adrian searched her face, and Sophia saw the exact moment he made his decision, when he stopped fighting what they both felt and surrendered to it completely. He kissed her, with a hunger that had been building since that rainy night. Since the first moment their eyes had met on that wet street corner, Sophia kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring every ounce of her choice, her certainty, into the connection between them. They made their way to Adrian's bedroom, a space that was masculine and elegant, with a massive bed and more of those floor-to-ceiling windows. They undressed each other slowly, reverently, as if they were both afraid the moment might shatter if they moved too quickly. When Adrian finally laid her down on his bed, his hands trembling slightly as they traced her body, Sophia saw him completely. Not the mob boss, not the dangerous man everyone feared, but just Adrian, vulnerable and yearning and afraid of breaking something precious. I love you, Sophia whispered, the words escaping before she could think about whether it was too soon, too much, too real. I know it's insane. I know it's too fast, but I do. I love you. Adrian froze above her, his eyes wide with shock. For a terrible moment, Sophia thought she'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then his expression transformed into something so raw, so unguarded, that it took her breath away. Say it again, he demanded, his voice rough with emotion. I love you, Sophia repeated, cupping his face. I love you, Adrian Mancini. All of you. The good, the bad, the complicated, the dangerous. All of it. God, Adrian breathed. And then he was kissing her again, and Sophia felt wetness on her cheeks that might have been his tears or hers or both. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. So much I'd burn down the entire world if it meant keeping you safe. They made love slowly, carefully, as if sealing a pact that went far deeper than physical desire. Afterward, they lay tangled together, the city lights painting patterns on their skin, and Sophia felt a peace she'd never experienced before, a sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was meant to be. What happens now? She asked quietly, her head resting on Adrian's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. Now? Adrian's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. Now we build a life. Figure out what that looks like for us. You can't go back to waiting tables, but that doesn't mean you have to be idle. What do you want to do, Sophia? If you could do anything. Sophia thought about it, about dreams she'd buried under the weight of survival and exhaustion. I always wanted to open a restaurant. A real one, not a diner. Somewhere that serves the food my grandmother taught me to make. Somewhere that feels like home. Then we'll make that happen. Adrian's voice was certain, absolute. I own properties all over the city. We'll find the perfect location, set you up with everything you need. It'll be yours. Completely yours. Something good coming from all of this. You'd do that? Sophia lifted her head to look at him. Invest in my dream like that? Sophia. Adrian's smile was soft, genuine. I'd give you anything. The restaurant is just the beginning. But it has to be something you build, something that's yours. I won't take that from you too. They talked through the night, about the restaurant, about Sophia's ideas for the menu, about how to navigate the complexities of their new reality. As dawn began to paint the sky pink and gold, Sophia finally asked the question that had been nagging at her since dinner. Russo, he's not going to just back down, is he? Adrian's expression hardened. No, tonight was a temporary truce, an acknowledgement of new boundaries. But Dominic's been looking for a war for years. I've just given him the perfect excuse to start one. Because of me. It wasn't a question. Because of his ambition. Adrian corrected firmly. You're just the catalyst. If it wasn't you, it would be something else. That's how men like Russo operate. They're never satisfied, never secure. They always want more. So what do? We prepare. We fortify our position. We make it clear that starting a war with me would cost more than he's willing to pay. Adrian pulled her closer. And we protect what matters. You, Isabella, the people who've been loyal. That's always been the rule in my family. Loyalty above all else. Even above profit? Sophia asked. Especially above profit. My father built this empire on fear and money, but those are fickle foundations. They crumble when something stronger comes along. Loyalty, real loyalty, earned loyalty. That's what lasts. That's what I'm trying to build. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marcus's voice came through, urgent but controlled. Boss, we have a situation. It's Isabella. Adrian was on his feet instantly, pulling on clothes with practiced speed. What happened? Her car was followed leaving the restaurant. We got her home safe, but there was a package waiting at her house. We need you to see it. Sophia dressed quickly as well, her heart pounding. This was it. The first real move in whatever game Russo was playing. As they hurried downstairs, she saw the fear in Adrian's eyes that he was trying to hide. Isabella was his weak spot. His sister, his family, and Russo knew it. Isabella was in Adrian's first-floor office, her husband Tony beside her, both looking shaken but unharmed. On the desk was a small black box, already opened. Inside, nestled in white silk, was a single dead rose and a note written in elegant script. Beautiful things are so fragile. It would be a shame if something happened to them. The threat was clear, unmistakable. Russo was escalating, and he was targeting the people Adrian loved most. Adrian's face went completely blank. The expression Sophia had learned meant he was at his most dangerous. When he spoke, his voice was cold enough to freeze blood. Marcus, I want every available man on Isabella and Tony. Round-the-clock protection. And I want eyes on every Russo property in the city. Every single one. Adrian. Isabella started, but he cut her off. No arguments. You're moving into the townhouse on Spruce Street, the one with the panic room and full security system. Tonight. You don't go anywhere without at least 3 guards. This isn't negotiable. What are you going to do? Isabella asked, and Sophia heard the fear in her voice that her brother was about to do something reckless. What I should have done years ago. Adrian's jaw was set, his eyes hard. I'm going to end this. Permanently. Boss, if you move against Russo directly, it could trigger an all-out war, Marcus warned. Every family in the Northeast will pick sides. It could get very bloody very fast. Then let it get bloody. Adrian's voice was absolute, final. I've spent 3 years trying to maintain peace, trying to be reasonable, trying to prove I'm not my father. But Russo has mistaken that for weakness. He's threatened my sister. He's threatened Sophia. That ends now. Sophia stepped forward, placing a hand on Adrian's arm. She could feel the tension vibrating through him, the barely contained violence. There has to be another way. Something that doesn't end with people dying. There isn't. Adrian's voice was gentle with her, but the steel underneath was unmistakable. This is my world, Sophia. This is how it works. You show strength or you die. There's no middle ground. Then show strength differently, Sophia insisted. You said your father built everything on fear and money. You wanted to build something different, something based on loyalty. Prove it. Find a way to end this that doesn't make you into him. For a long moment, Adrian simply looked at her, and Sophia watched the war happening behind his eyes. The easy path versus the right path. The violence he'd been trained for versus the man he wanted to become. Finally, he turned to Marcus. Set up a meeting. Just me and Russo. Neutral ground, no weapons. Just the 2 of us and 1 witness each. Tomorrow night. That's suicide, Marcus protested. Russo's not going to play fair. He will if he's smart. Adrian's voice was calm now, calculated. Because I'm going to offer him something he wants more than war. And if he refuses, his smile was cold and sharp, then we'll do things the hard way. After Marcus left to make the arrangements and Isabella and Tony departed with their new security detail, Sophia found herself alone with Adrian again. The sun was fully up now, streaming through the windows, making the events of the night feel surreal. "What are you going to offer him?" Sophia asked quietly. Adrian was silent for a moment, staring at the threatening note on his desk. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would change everything. "Territory, specifically, the waterfront contracts my father died protecting. They're worth millions annually and Russo's been trying to get a piece of them for years." "But those are yours," Sophia protested. "Part of your family's legacy." "Yes, but they're also not worth your life, or Isabella's, or anyone else I care about." Adrian turned to face her, and his expression was resolute. "My father would have gone to war over this, would have burned the entire city before giving an inch. But that's not the man I want to be. That's not the man you fell in love with." Sophia moved to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "I fell in love with the man who sits on street corners testing humanity, who keeps his promises, who'd give up his legacy to protect the people he loves. That man, that's who you are. Not the violence, not the empire, just you." Adrian held her tightly, and Sophia felt him trembling slightly. "I hope you're right, because if this goes wrong, if Russo takes the territory and comes after you anyway, I will become my father. I will burn everything down, and I won't be able to come back from that." "Then we make sure it doesn't go wrong," Sophia said firmly. "Together, we face this together." The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. Adrian met with his key people, laid out contingency plans, made arrangements for what would happen if the meeting with Russo went badly. Sophia watched him work, saw the incredible weight of leadership he carried, the impossible decisions he had to make daily, and she understood, finally, why he'd been so reluctant to let her into this world. But she also saw the moments when he'd look at her across the room and his expression would soften, when he'd take her hand and squeeze it like she was an anchor keeping him steady. She saw the man beneath the boss, and she loved him more for it. The meeting was set for 11 p.m. at the Old Maritime Museum, closed for renovation, empty, neutral. Adrian would take only Marcus. Russo would bring his second-in-command. No weapons, no other personnel. Just a conversation between two men who held the power of life and death in their hands. As Adrian prepared to leave, Sophia helped him with his coat, the same careful ritual that had become their routine. When he turned to face her, she saw the fear he was trying to hide, the very real possibility that he might not come back. "If something happens," he started, but Sophia cut him off with a kiss. "Nothing's going to happen. You're going to offer him the deal. He's going to accept because he's ambitious, not stupid, and you're going to come home to me. That's how this ends. And if I'm wrong, if he wants war anyway," Sophia looked him straight in the eyes, "then you do what you have to do, and I'll be here when you get back no matter what. That's what choosing you means, Adrian. All of it. The good outcomes and the bad ones. I'm not going anywhere. Going." Adrian kissed her like it might be the last time, pouring everything into it. Love and fear and gratitude and desperation. Then he straightened his shoulders, became the boss again, and walked out the door. Sophia watched from the fourth-floor window as the car pulled away, carrying the man she loved into a confrontation that could end in peace or blood. And for the first time since that rainy night, she prayed, not to her grandmother's God, but to whatever force in the universe might be listening. Please, please let him come home. Let this end without more violence. Let the choice we made be the right one. The hours that followed were the longest of Sophia's life. She couldn't eat, couldn't sit still, couldn't do anything but pace and watch the clock and wait. Isabella called 3 times, each conversation more tense than the last. The security team was on high alert, ready for war if the meeting went wrong. At 1:47 a.m., Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "It's done. Coming home." 2 words. No details. But he was alive. He was coming home. When the car finally pulled up at 2:15, Sophia was waiting at the door. Adrian stepped out and she could see immediately that something had shifted. He looked exhausted but also lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. He climbed the steps and pulled her into his arms, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. "It's over," he said quietly. "Russo accepted the deal. The waterfront contracts are his, and in exchange you, Isabella. Everyone under my protection, untouchable. We put it in writing. signed it in front of witnesses. He wanted territory more than he wanted war. Sophia felt tears of relief streaming down her face. So we're safe? Actually safe? As safe as anyone ever is in this world. Adrian pulled back to look at her, cupping her face in his hands. But yes, the immediate threat is over. You can breathe again. We both can. They went upstairs to Adrian's floor, to the sanctuary they'd created together. And as they lay in bed, the first light of dawn painting the sky outside, Sophia realized that this was just the beginning. There would be other threats, other challenges, other moments when Adrian had to choose between the man he was and the man he wanted to be. But they'd face them together. That was the choice they'd both made. Not the safe choice, not the easy choice, but the real one. I love you, Adrian murmured, already half asleep, exhaustion finally claiming him. I love you too, Sophia whispered back, holding him close. Always. And in that moment, in that beautiful brownstone in the heart of Philadelphia, a waitress who'd given her coat to a stranger and the mob boss who'd fallen in love with her kindness found something neither had been looking for. A future, complicated and dangerous and imperfect, but theirs. Together, they'd build something new from the ashes of the old. A restaurant that served food made with love. A life that balanced power with humanity. A love that transformed them both. The city outside continued its endless rhythm, indifferent to the small miracle happening within these walls. But Sophia and Adrian knew the truth that would carry them through whatever came next. Sometimes the simplest act of kindness, a coat given in the rain, could change everything, could save a life, forge a love, and prove that even in the darkest corners of the world, humanity still flickered like a candle refusing to be extinguished. And that was worth fighting for, worth choosing, worth everything.